Namaste, beautiful souls. Welcome back to my 2026 Decan Walk. This is the third decan of Taurus, and at the time of this recording, we are several degrees into this decan. And I've been sitting in this energy, trying to really feel where I am and how I would like to share the energy of the cards that represent this decan with you. I feel this is not an easy time, and there are a few different ways we can work with the energy of the cards, particularly the Seven of Pentacles and its ruler Saturn, represented by the World card. And of course, we also have the introduction of a new court card here sitting in their shadow decan. So lots to speak to today. If you are new to my channel, welcome. It's lovely to have you here, and I look forward to your feedback, and let me know how you are doing with your own decan studies and how this particular time of Taurus is feeling for you. We are still in the energy of the Hierophant. And on the table today, I still am working with the Hierophant card from the Wee Moon Tarot, which I really feel its energy. In the center is the No Thingness card from the Osho Zen Tarot, and this beautiful portrayal of the Hierophant from the Tarot de Cinque. The planet that rules Taurus is the Empress, and I feel especially when we are working with Saturn and the energy of Binah, there is something that feels like it has a very strong pull when we also have the Empress card as the ruler of the sign. And this feels very contradictory to a lot of the writings about this particular decan. It is one, especially in terms of Aleister Crowley and other Thoth-inspired decks, to be a decan that is of futile energy. It feels like there's nothing much we can do here other than just to sit and wait in our doom and gloom. And I never like to be in that place. I always feel like there is a perspective that if we can find it, we'll be able to better understand that which we are experiencing, especially those challenges that we're moving through at this time, if we're really sitting and working with the flow of this decanic energy. And so the ruler of the Hierophant, as I mentioned, is Venus. And the Venus card in the tarot is the Empress. The path of the Empress on the Tree of Life goes from Hokmah to Binah. So the Empress herself doesn't sit in the Great Sea of Binah. She is the connecting path between the father and the mother. And yet she seems to have a very strong connection to this Seven of Earth, and we'll look at each of these here on the table, and its ruling planet of Saturn, because Saturn is the planet of Binah. And yet, with the World card being the card that represents Saturn, it has a feeling of being very low on the Tree of Life. The path of the world on the Tree of Life takes us from Yesod to Malkut, dangling way down at the bottom of the tree where the Seven of Pentacles or coins or earth happens to be. And so we have a cycling sort of energy taking us from way down on the bottom of the tree up to the top of the tree into the supernal triangle. A great distance to travel. And in that way, it almost feels as if in this decan we are being pulled in multiple directions, that the distance we need to traverse to solve what we are working through is just so great. It's too far, it's too much. And I wonder if part of that hopelessness that one can feel in the Seven of Pentacles is indeed the sheer distance that these cards seem to represent. As far as 7 of Earth cards that I chose to work with myself and that are sitting on my altar for this decan, I have the one from the Wee Moon Tarot. This is Osho Zen. These 3 cards are Osho Zen. This card is from Tarot of the She, and I have one more that I want to talk about. This is from the Marielle Tarot. Quite a complex card, and in the Marielle, it doesn't necessarily follow the decans as we work with in the Golden Dawn order. And yet there is so much wisdom in this deck. And one of the things Marie White writes for this decan is that accomplishing your magnum opus and purpose in life is not the end, that it is indeed time to go inside. And so let's just reflect on those words in terms of the 7 of Pentacles. And whether you want to reflect on the cards that I have on the table, I will zoom in on some of them, or the more familiar Waite Smith 7 of Pentacles. I urge you to think about the fullness of life, all that we have done to get to this point in the garden where we have an abundance of leaves, there may be fruit on the vine, and we are in a time of waiting. We're not quite sure whether it is time to harvest, whether the garden needs more fertilizer. And I have been thinking about this card in terms of micromanagement and how sometimes we just need to let nature be. In the Osho Zen Tarot, we see the lusciousness of Venus, this Venusian figure in the center, all of the phases of the moon, and we are asked to reflect on patience. There are times when the only thing to do is wait. And I know that we are often challenged with the doing of inaction. And sometimes inaction can be the greatest action. The seed has been planted, the child is growing in the womb, and the oyster is coating the grain of sand and making it into a pearl. This card reminds us that now is a time when all that is required is to simply be alert, patient, and waiting. And you can see the attitude of the woman in this card, the softness of the face. And I look across this arrangement of cards, and there's just kind of a beautiful conversation between the Hierophant in the Wee Moon Tarot and the patience of the woman that we see in the 7 of Rainbows in the Osho Zen. When I add in this mix of the World card and this idea of completion and endings, and go back to those words of Marie White, accomplishing your magnum opus and purpose in life is not the end. So how can we deepen our understanding of this experience of completion, the power of connection in terms of the 7 of Pentacles? I think about the literal process of birthing a child and how important the restriction of the cervix is, the container of the womb. And in terms of Saturn, in that metaphor, this boundary, the container, the restriction is vital to the survival of the project. And so in that way, we need to make friends with our boundaries. We need to learn to become more comfortable with restrictions and boundaries that we may not necessarily understand. And while this particular world card might feel beautiful and joyous and full of powerful connections, all of these connections could also be viewed as a net, something that contains and holds an energy, as if the earth is held within the arms of the Divine Mother. All of these beautiful hands knitting and weaving the rainbow net that we see here. We could look at this Seven of Earth with tremendous sadness that our garden is restricted by the buildings, the structures, the cement, and we are not able to flourish within this limited space. Or we can count our blessings that we have this small space to be in connection with the Divine Mother and allow from that more blessings to grow. Taurus is a season of abundance. It's a season of understanding our relationship with abundance. And if you think of the journey from 5 to 6 to 7 of Pentacles and how some of us react to the 5 of Pentacles, the lessons here can be harsh. And so it's important to take time to reflect upon our personal experience with Venus and with abundance, or our perception of the lack thereof. I was with some children down at the beach today, and while I was lingering and feeling such beautiful energy while viewing a mother log and watching new life come forth through the cracks in dried driftwood on the beach, right behind me was a seal whose life had come to an end and perhaps had been dragged up the beach by a bear, and the children were very curious about the entrails and the missing head and the bones and all that they were viewing. And I kind of sat there in amazement of the dichotomy of the concept of abundance itself. That the seal was an unexpected gift of abundance for the bear or the bear and their family, and yet in some way felt very much like the failure card of the Seven of Discs in the Crowley card, the darkness, the disappointment, and the confusion that may lay here. And I have learned that my own relationship with abundance is one that is ever changing, and a lesson that continues to require a tremendous amount of patience and deep reflection. In the Tarot of the She, the key word is effort sustained. And when I reflect on the verb to sustain, what is required is a tremendous amount of strength and trust, and indeed patience. And if you think about the energy required to create a standing stone circle and its purpose here on this earth, and how this effort has created such an abundance for so many on this planet, it's quite an extraordinary and overwhelming feeling. And I think of all of the souls who have gathered at standing stone circles in ceremony, in reverence, danced, closed their eyes, prayed, watched sunrises, held hands. It's as if the original creation of the standing stone circle had no idea of the effect it would have over centuries. And so there is a greatness to the Seven of Pentacles, and there's a greatness to this practice of patience. While it might feel like the fruit of our present labors represents a completion or an ending of sorts, it's only the beginning of a much greater cycle. And underneath all of this, the Great Mother continues to work her magic and bless and build all of this connection. This decan is the first decan of the Knight of Air, one who may have a great deal of trouble waiting and being patient for the fruit to ripen and for the seeds to become a part of their study for the next stage of life. Accomplishing your magnum opus and purpose in life is not the end. Now it is the time to go inside. And this dreamer prince holds their hands over their ears, closes their eyes, and begins to still the mind. This reminds me of the practice of Brahmari breath. It is a wonderful yogic practice to help calm an overstimulated nervous system. And you can feel that overstimulation in the birds that twitter and encircle this dreamer prince, and the frustration that is felt in the Knight of Clouds in the Osho Zen Tarot, the energy of the arguing and the confusion and the incessant internal conversation. And all the Knight of Clouds really wants is to break free of their armor so they may have an easier time of cycling, moving forward, bearing witness to change and progression. All of the Knights begin their journey in a 7. And one of the things that has really helped me to understand the 7, 8, 9 of the Knights is to think about this in terms of the Chariot and how patience may be the greatest challenge of the charioteer, stopping to reflect and check that they have everything they need for their journey, that they indeed have done sufficient planning. It feels like something they would rather leave to their subordinates. Shadow decans are the last decan of one sign and the first decan of a new court card. And I find that other than most of the queens, it can be a really challenging place to be, moving from a fixed sign to a mutable sign. And so one of the questions I want to ask myself, and I'm reflecting on something that I'm personally working with right now, is why am I in such a hurry to fix this when this has been a problem lingering and brewing for such a very long time? What do I need to do to better understand the importance of the restriction that Saturn provides, so that what is brewing, what is developing, what is growing in the 7 of Pentacles has a chance to be the best version of what it is meant to be? It doesn't require my micromanagement. And so if I am able to turn in, if I am able to find a breath of nothingness, if I am able to step back and to wait and to breathe, to learn to clear my mind, trust that what comes from that is going to be a whole lot more wonderful than if I quickly wound up everything right now. That sort of action may indeed result in failure. So take your time and allow non-action to be the greatest gift you can give yourself for the remainder of this decan. Take good care. Namaste.